Hey champs. So I wasn't going to make a video about this project because, well, frankly, sometimes videotaping stuff while you're working on a project is a little bit of a pain and kind of holds it up. And this idea that came across to me was one of those ideas I just wanted to run after. But as I'm finishing up and getting ready to weld up the legs for this, I thought, well, why not? The issue here is on Harbor Acres, we're a goat farm. We just made a new pasture and we needed a water container. Well, it just so happened a friend of mine here on the island also just had to replace his water heater. How are the two connected, you may ask? Well, he brought up to me that his old water heater was garbage and it's got a giant tank inside of it, 40 gallons. And if I could figure out somehow to cut it in half or how those things work, then I could weld some legs on it and I'd have a perfect durable water container or two that would last for years and years to come. So I decided, why not? Did a little bit of looking, and I'll show the pictures that I've taken along the way. You'll see that at least on the water heater model that I've got, it's got a steel casing on it that you have to remove. Top and bottom came off pretty easy. All the water fixtures came off pretty easy. And then I had fiberglass insulation around a tank. So obviously stripped all of that off, got to the point where I was down to a metal water tank. Found the seam. There was one welded seam along the edge. So that gave me a straight point for starting off the cut. What I did there was measure the circumference of the tank, split that in half, and marked a point on both sides so that obviously I then had a line that was directly across to be able to cut it in to two halves. I basically used my Makita grinder. It's a 4.5 to 5 inch angle grinder with a disposable cutoff wheel, and was able to take it slow, got it cut in half, and came up with two halves that looked more like, what was inside of it looked more like I had gotten a hold of a septic tank than a water heater. But that stuff was real easy. It was just the sediment and the buildup from years of use that I had to rinse out. So took it over to the hose, rinsed it out. Once I got it all rinsed out, I had some scrap steel that was around. Just so happened to be that I had frames that were nice squares. So I figured out how tall I wanted my water troughs to be. And then I cut the square basically in half and cut angles so that it would fit onto the tank. And this is what we came up with. I'm just about to the point of being able to weld the legs on. I do not see there are going to be any issues. I created it, just was convenient to put it at about 13 inches high, just hopefully to deter the goats from climbing into it, but also so that they could get water out of it without it being too high up. As I was cutting, one thing that was actually pretty lucky is that one of the fittings, the bung hole for one of the inlets is just high enough up on the tank that I figure I'll leave it there. Why? Because as you're filling up half of a 40-gallon tank, you end up with almost 20 gallons. But if one of your children is out filling it up, you can't control where the overflow is going to go if you just have a solid tank. So rather than welding that hole shut or plugging it with some sort of threaded fitting, I decided that I would leave that open so any overflow is going to come out that side. Yeah, so let's get to welding. So one of the things I wanted to make clear and make sure everybody was aware of if they do decide to go this project route is when you're cutting metal, there's going to be sharp burrs. And if your goats are anything like my goats, there is the potential that they are going to cut themselves, because if there's something sharp, they will find it. What I found was real easy is I just used my random orbiting sander and used some 220 grit sandpaper after I got everything ground down to where I wanted it, and it takes the burrs off and polishes it up nicely. So that will make sure that our goat, specifically one that I'm thinking of who's accident prone, won't be able to find a way to injure herself. Well, here's the first test on water tightness after doing the welding. Looks like the legs are going to hold up well, and I'm going to have to clean out all the sludge and stuff that still was in there after cleaning it out and welding it and stuff, but I think it's going to work all right for these guys, and you can hear them in the background. They're thirsty. So we put the water trough into our back pasture and realized that my child is currently 10 years old, and at about 8 pounds per gallon is not going to be able to drain to put new water in a 20-gallon water tank. So I ended up welding up a second one from the other half of the water tank because it has the clean out for the water heater. Very easy to thread on a globe valve and allow her to be able to have a low point where she could drain out the dirty water and be able to refill it up with some clean stuff. So far, we've had the water trough out here for about a month. It is a solid and steady water container that I'm not worried about the goats breaking or kicking holes in or anything like that. So, like always, I love you guys and drink water.